We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AV Rant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to another edition of AV Rant. I'm Tom Andrew, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AV Rant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. So welcome back, Tom. Missed you last week, but thank you very much to Lee Overstreet, who filled in as guest co-host. As always, had a good time talking with Lee.
I was trying to find where you guys popped because you meandered about forever before you popped.
We did pop at one point.
You did, and then for those of you that don't know,
I often forget. So
the popping is just a auditory cue that syncs up the video.
Synchronization,
so you say pop right. Real loud.
So yeah, but, we're recording on a Tuesday this week. It's entirely my fault because I got caught up watching She-Ra, the new She-Ra on Netflix, which I greatly enjoyed.
There's a She-Ra on
Netflix?
There is
a brand new She-Ra. It's kind of funny because it's DreamWorks who's doing it, and they don't have the rights to any of the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe characters, so they can't make any reference to He-Man, and like. She still says Grayskull, but they can't explain what Grayskull is, so that's kind of funny.
Whatever.
Anyway, I greatly enjoyed
it. I was never a He-Man fan, so that's fine with me.
I was the exact right age for those.
I heard you guys talking last week about how I was spending quality time with my family, and that's not what it was.
Well, you said
that's not what it was.
You said something about it was like wife and kids, and
they are underfoot constantly. I can't get away from them. I can't if they're home for two and a half weeks because it's Christmas. Well, then I can tell them to all go away because I got to do the podcast. Yeah. But they're home for 1 week. It's really my wife's off for an extra couple of days. I can't say, okay, honey, I know that you wanted to hang out with your friends tonight, but instead no one can come over and I've got to do the podcast. It's like. It wasn't going to happen. Wasn't even worth broaching the subject. So, yeah, that was just family unity is what this was. This was a happy wife, happy life sort of situation.
Absolutely.
So, plus, I had a kid who had 2 Fs at the beginning of this thing, and we had to deal with that hot mess. So there was a lot of family strife going on. Lots of tears. Lots of, you're not being fair. Well, my teachers hate me. Like, yeah. They probably do. You're kind of a jerk. But, yeah, so this morning I was having meetings with that same child's teachers. But, of course, between the time that we had scheduled the meeting and the time that the meeting happened, he had managed to get all those Fs raised because he turned in late assignments and everything else.
Okay.
And I'm like, right. But then he got outed. Apparently, he brought a gallon bag full of cookies to school. I'm like, cookies? He's like, yeah, the cookies I made. I'm like, did you ask to take cookies to school? He's like, no.
So this was a problem or a good thing?
This is a problem. Okay. No, this is a problem because first, there's a couple of reasons that this is a problem. One, you're never supposed to take these days because of
allergies and concerns.
You're never supposed to take homemade food to school unless you're going to eat it yourself, not to share. Okay, you just can't do that. Second. They're not regular cookies. They look like chocolate chip cookies, but I like chocolate chip cookies with a little bit of cayenne pepper in them. So they're all got cayenne pepper in them. So they're a little bit spicy. They're just spicy enough so that when you take a bite, you go, ooh, it's sweet. And then you're like, oh, wait, it's getting spicy. And then you take another bite and the sweetness cancels out the heat. And then the heat comes back. So you end up sitting there power eating these cookies because it keeps the sweet keeps the spice away. Which, I mean, that's not the only reason I have put on weight in the last year, but it's certainly a contributing factor. So these are the cookies that they make for me, generally speaking. But see, I think he brought them to punk all of his friends. So there are some issues going on here. Also, he did not ask to go get the cookies. This is one of those schools like you have to go get a bathroom key or whatever, bathroom pass, but he didn't go to the bathroom. He asked for a bathroom pass and went to his locker, which is detention worthy at the school. But because it was the first time it never happened, they let him slide. I'm like, well, I'm not going to let him slide. So he's probably sitting at school wondering what I'm going to do to him when he gets home. I'm like, well, I hope you enjoyed the 2 days you had your phone back since you raised your Fs, because I'm taking it away again.
Well, there are other things that you could find in double chocolate cookies, especially now in Canada with our new laws that passed recently. So Cayenne pepper is not the word. Oh, well, marijuana is completely legal in Canada.
Oh,
now,
yeah,
so.
that's right. Yeah, sure. I mean, come on. You know, my daddy made these cookies. I brought some to. I mean, I didn't make it. He actually made the cookies, so he knew everything that was in them. But yeah, you take your. I will say though, I don't know if did you notice that I posted the RBH deals.
Yes, yeah.
Holy crap, dude! They had some crazy deals.
Yeah, they got some crazy deal. Well, yeah, I might mention those speakers later on the podcast, but yeah, they are. Everything looks sold out.
Yeah, well, I guess
close.
so.
Not quite everything, but almost
okay. So
everything
what
is
happened?
stock.
So that those of you that know that are interested, I posted on our Facebook page, our stream feed or whatever. You know, RBH has got some crazy Black Friday deals. Check them out. Well, what had happened was my kids, both my two older kids, want Bluetooth headphones.
Okay.
They're like, "Oh, can you get us some earbuds?" I'm like, "No," or AirBuds or whatever they are. First of all, they won't work with your stupid phone. And second of all, no.
Oh yes.
I have a friend whose son, he's like
AirPods.
he loves them, and I'm like, see, so this guy knows me. He's like, oh, I think they sound pretty good. I put them in my ear. I was like, nope. How do you feel about nothing but lower mid range and bass? Because that's pretty much all you're
not
getting
only
out
that,
of
but everyone around you can hear everything coming out of those things. They do not isolate the sound to you at all.
So I had decided I was going to get them some Bluetooth headphones from RBH.
Yeah.
So on Black Friday, I went to RBH and I was like, oh my God, these things are $150. I'm like, money's too tight this year for me to be given $150 to any single child of mine for one present, much less two of them. But then the sale price for Black Friday was $50 basically.
Yeah.
It was like 1/3 the price. I'm like, I didn't even ask my wife. I ordered them right away. You know, insane deals, man. Insane deals. So that's about the only insane deal I found, but that was a crazy one. All right, this is AV Rant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at questionavrant.com. You go to www.avrant.com. You can click on the, well, I guess you can leave us a comment there. Go to Facebook.
Can we? That's Mark from Accessories for Less put a thing on Facebook. He's like, I tried to leave a comment, didn't work. So.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Don't make me try to fix it right now.
No, not right now. But yeah.
No, I think you have to sign up or something.
Yeah, I wasn't able to. Something along those lines. Wasn't able to sign up. Anyway,
yeah. We for a while there. Maybe I disabled it a long time ago. It's the first person that has asked. But that's sad. Community engagement. For a while there, we were getting like insane numbers of spammers, and I just went through and like disabled commenting for a while, and then mass deleted everybody's accounts and everything. For anybody I didn't recognize, like, which was out of 5,000 accounts of like they were all like
alphanumeric
.rr.
names, yeah.
.rr, .ru, .fu, but yeah. So okay, well, go to avrant.com and then go to facebook.com and /avrant podcast and leave us a comment there. You can also hit us up directly on youtube.com/avrant. Don't leave a comment there. I guess it's basically Facebook these days. Or you can contact us directly, Rob at avrant.com. His Twitter is @FirstReflect. I'm Tom at avrant.com. My Twitter is @avrant_Tom. But really, the way to get a hold of us is just to hit question@avrant.com.
That's the one. Question@avrant.com, our email address. Use that. That's the best.
Yeah, that works. I want to thank our listeners for the week. To become a listener of the week, all you have to do is support the podcast in some way. One of the ways you can do that is by going to www.avrant.com, clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, which takes you to a PayPal donation page. From there, you can use your PayPal account or a credit card, where PayPal will process it and then give us the majority of the monies that you say to send over to us. So we want to thank Terry and Jeff for going to avrant.com and doing that. So thank you, Terry. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, Terry, Jeff, thank you both very much for those donations. And Jeff also took a bit of our advice. He went out on Black Friday, got himself a Vizio P Series TV for $900 for the 65-incher. It's a pretty darn good deal for that size of TV. So yeah, congrats, Jeff.
I've heard a lot of people talking about TVs and stuff lately, and they're like, "Oh my God, there was a 65-inch." Or 55-inch something, for $500 they saw. I'm like, oh, sure. Yeah, that's how much they cost. That's my parents. That's how much they cost. So, like, Oh, but the quality's not probably letting you get. I'm like, no.
Some of them are okay, yeah.
Some of them are pretty not bad.
I mean, like, $600 before Black Friday. If it's 55-inch, it could have got you one of them TCL 6 series. So that would have been great.
Well, I mean, this is the same people that have a 55-inch plasma from Samsung. Sure, they spent $2,600 on, like, 10 years ago or whatever it was. So
now that gets you a 65-inch OLED. So.
That's right. That's right. I forget where we were.
Patreon.
Oh, yeah, Patreon. So if we also have our Patreon account, which is patreon.com/AVRant
podcast.
I can never remember. Anyways, this is a service that allows you to sign up for a monthly donation to us, and you support your content creators of your choice, webcomics, musicians, YouTube celebrities, and podcasts. So pick your podcast. If you decide one of us, we should be one of them. You can do a minimum of $1 a month. You can do a maximum of infinity. So we're looking for that infinity to show up.
Definitely. But yes, thank you to our 77 patrons over there. That's awesome. Thanks so much for that support.
All right, in the news, the Digital Cinema Initiative, which includes all the major movie studios, now has a version 0.9. Wait, we haven't gotten to 1 yet. Draft of their HDR Cinema specifications. So that's good. I can understand why it's not 1 yet. You can see I've never read
It's a draft.
Yeah. So it's ready for review and ratification. They're looking to use the PQEOTF.
Yes, that's the Perceptual Quantizer Electro-Optical Transfer Function. The thing Dolby invented. That's what that is.
So that's just like Dolby Cinemas with 12-bit video showing 500 nit peaks. So this is all these people complaining about, oh, my TV doesn't do a full 1,000. It only does, 450. I'm like, you're not walking out of the movie theater going, oh, that's just ridiculous amount of brightness in there. It's just so dim. Like, unless you're watching 3D. The draft includes specifications for direct view cinema displays like Samsung's Cinema LED modular display. It also includes high frame rate.
Yep.
So, interesting.
Yeah. So, I mean, they were mentioning how, like, in the past, it's often been that the cinema had the greater experience first, and then eventually that came home. But now it's flipped, right? Now we've got more advanced displays at home than they have in the cinema, and they're trying to catch up.
That's exactly what I was thinking when I heard this. I'm like, wow. I mean, in a lot of ways, I think the cinemas, like home cinema, it's easy these days to have a better experience at home than it is at the cinemas. It used to be that the one thing that you couldn't do at home that you could get at the cinema was really good bass. Sure. And that's simply because your room they had tons of subwoofers and their room is huge. So a lot of these, and there's plenty of dampening and stuff in there. A lot of these issues that you have in a small room don't exist. But now we've sort of figured that out, with proper placement of subwoofers and, auto room correction. We've sort of figured all that stuff, and now the bass is good. Our TVs are better. I mean, I'm so not motivated to go to theaters anymore. I mean, there's quite literally no reason for me to go that I can think of that's not basically politically motivated. And I've said that a couple of times before, my wife and I have talked about that quite a bit. We're just like, I'm not going. If I'm not supporting the movie for a reason, like I'm trying to tell the cinemas, the studios, I want to see more movies like this, then I'm not going. Yeah. And I should have done that with stuff like A Quiet Place. And I haven't seen Hereditary yet, but I feel like I'm going to love it if I see it.
I don't know. Yeah, well, that 500 nit peak for a theater, mentioning that, like they are looking at those direct view cinema displays, the LED-based modular type displays, and they're like, if they were going to hit 500 nits with projectors, there's got to be some new projectors created, because like in Dolby Cinemas right now, they top out at about 130 nits. They're speccing a minimum of 100 nits, topping out at about 130. That's a lot more light to get up to 500 nits on that size of a screen. So I loathe all the talk about, the display's direct view, like we could have some ambient lighting, we can serve food while the movie is going on. I'm like, oh my god, like that. The last that will definitely drive me even further away from going to the cinema.
I'm trying to pretend nobody else is in here. Thank you very much.
I need the lights on. People already act like they're in their living room when the lights are off, and they don't serve food in the middle of the movie, so it can only get worse. I'm not looking forward to that. I'll stay at home.
Yeah, let's not do that.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the questions here. John has a theater area that's 1,800 cubic feet, but then it's open to a hallway and a large kitchen. So it's not.
It is not that.
He wrote to us earlier this year. We suggested starting with a single SVS PC12 Plus, potentially adding a second subwoofer later after hearing how the sub performed in the space on its own. But he waited a bit. SVS discontinued the Plus series. Now he's got the new 3000 series, which is here to replace the Plus series. Did you talk about the 3000
we
series?
We sure talked about the 3000
okay.
last week. That's right, yeah.
Should you go for one of those, a 3000, SB3000 or the PB3000? Well, I mean, you should go for the PB3000 and your infinity room, but
yeah, but it's, I mean,
it's a size.
The concern is the size of the box, right? Because I mean, one of the reasons we talked about the PC12 Plus is that you're getting all of that output at a price that wasn't as expensive as at the time the Ultra series.
So they don't have a PC 3000.
There is no PC 3000. There's no cylinder
coming?
in that series. I don't know. But it's not here right now. You cannot buy it today. So yeah, I mean, output-wise, we're still in the same ballpark. The 3000 series does improve upon the Plus series. It's even louder, but we came to this conclusion because it's like the 2000 series didn't have quite enough output for his room size. The Ultra series, or now the 4000 series, is a bit too expensive, so that Plus landed nicely right in the middle, gave him the right amount of output, and the cylinder was a nice form factor. Yeah.
You know, give him a call and say, listen,
well,
I know it's not on the website anymore, but
yeah,
see if they got one tucked back there someplace, someplace office B stock.
They do tend to list what they have in their outlet store. I did notice that they had some PB12 Plus in the outlet store, at least at one point. They might be sold by now, who knows, but those were there, which would be a good deal if you can fit the gigantic box size, and it is huge. Please be very aware. But yeah, you'd want to go ported for sure. I mean, the other option is to see if maybe they have an outlet version of a PC 4000. Right, which is...
That's still going to be probably pricier.
It's still going to be pretty pricey, but I mean, it is $1,400 for the PB 3000. That's the price point we're looking at now. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, but yeah, regardless, we would want you to get a ported version. The 3000 series is perfect output-wise for the space that he had before. So either go up to a PC 4000 if you need the smaller footprint, but just as much, or in fact more output, or look for maybe a PB12 Plus if the box size is okay, but you want a lower price.
Right, and check AudioGone and...
there's that, yeah.
Craigslist.
We don't, I mean, I look around sometimes and I don't see that many of the modern SPS subs for sale. I think people keep them. I don't see a ton of them out there. No.
All right, his theater area is a 5.1 setup, so he uses the remaining two channels on his Denon X2200W receiver to power a pair of Zone 2 speakers outside. He'd like to add 2 more pairs of speakers, a second pair in the yard, and a third pair in his garage. He'd be fine with all of them playing the same source, but he'd like independent volume control for each of these three pairs. At the moment, he can use the Dayton. The Dayton. You see where my answer is going already?
Leading. Foreshadowing.
Oh, it's a Freudian slip, but not really Freudian. Can use a Denon app to adjust the volume, which he likes. Is there any way to control the volume of all 3 pairs independently? Well, yeah. There are speaker selection boxes that you can do this with.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some
distribution amplifiers. Yeah.
The Dayton has, I know, the distribution amps that you can do this with. So basically, you could even probably stop using the
surround back outputs.
Yeah, surround back outputs.
Oh yeah. You just use the pre-outs instead.
Just the pre-outs and just use this amp to do everything for you. And if you got, I mean, it depends on how much money you want to spend.
Yes.
But some of them have like app control and everything else, so you could just do it all from your phone.
That's just it. I mean, the 2 most affordable ones, as we did foreshadow, Dayton has their DAX66. Now, this is a 6-zone potential amplifier. Like 12 amplifiers are in this thing, so 6 zones with a pair of speakers in each. You only need 3, but they don't really make a 3. So not only is there this Dayton DAX66, but Monoprice actually has... It really is the exact same thing, just with slightly different looking keypads for a slightly lower price. So Monoprice sells it for about $600. Now, with that package, what you get is that 12 amplifier matrix distribution amp. So it'll power 6 zones, but it can also connect up to 6 sources and you can send any of those 6 sources to any of the 6 zones or combination of the 6 zones. So, you know, the pre-outs from your Denon can just be one of potentially as many as 6 sources. You can even, if you somehow made more than 6 zones, daisy chain together more than one of these units to have up to 18 zones, still with only 6 sources shared between, but you could actually do 18 different zones with these things. And they just connect the keypads with an Ethernet cable back to the amplifier and regular speaker wire from the amplifier to any of the speakers. So that's really the way to come at this. The one thing to be aware of is that if you want to control it with an app, you need some additional equipment. So the app itself is like $5 for iOS or Android, so I don't think that's going to be the stumbling block. And it is called the Monoprice Whole Home Audio app, but it will still work with the Dayton DAX66. So either way that you go, it's the exact same thing. The Monoprice Whole Home app works with both of those. But that's not the end of the story. You do need a way to connect that distribution amplifier to your network so that it can work with the app, and it has to be a RS-232 to either Ethernet or Wi-Fi adapter. So if you look at the app in either the iTunes Store or the Google Play Store, they specifically tell you which products to buy to make this work, and it is from Global Cache. It's their iTac, either the Wi-Fi or the iTac Flex Ethernet adapter, and then for whatever reason, they're like, make sure you get the Global Cache RS-232 cable, because apparently third-party cables don't always work. I don't know why that would be the case, but regardless, it's not super expensive. So all in hardware-wise for that Global Cache equipment, you're looking at about another $120. So about $125 on top of the distribution amp that comes with the keypads itself. So you're looking at about $725 all in if you go with the Monoprice one. And yeah, like I say, that'll give you the ability to expand up to 6 zones if you want. But that lets you use the app. You can choose which source goes to which zone or group of zones. It's very convenient, works really nicely, and that'd be the way to come at this.
Would it be cheaper to just buy another receiver?
Huh. Well, I mean, he wants 3 extras. Oh, I see.
See what I'm saying?
One of the other ones is like 1 zone plus its zone 2.
Yeah.
And then you have your theater plus zone 2. But then how would you share one source with all zones?
Y-splitter. I'm not saying it's an elegant solution, and it would definitely it would require your Harmony remote to do a couple of backflips to get it done. This,
I mean, it could be less expensive.
I think it would be. I think it would theoretically
be
possible to do this cheaper by buying a second receiver.
That also has a zone 2. No.
Well, I mean, let's think about this. I mean, what's this whole setup costing here?
$725. $725 for.
Can we get
that's
3?
Assuming he wants to use the app.
He wants 4 total zones, right? Can we get 4 zones out of a receiver for $725?
For $725, not all in one receiver. That would do 4. I mean, there are ones that have up to 3 extra zones.
Probably need amps on top of it, right?
Yeah, and that'd be a flagship, basically. Yeah, it's tough. You're right in this sort of ballpark price range. I mean, the other option would be to look at something like Amazon's Echo Link amp, if you want to do this all wirelessly, but those are $300 each.
Right, so you need another 2 of those.
So you need at least 2 of those, and there you're up to $600. You might need 3 of them if you want all 3 to use the same system and the same app, and then you're at $900. So I still like the Monoprice or Dayton solution. I mean, it does everything you want to do, plus gives you expandability. If you went the receiver route, you're stuck at the 3 zones max. You couldn't expand to any more. This gives you future to grow.
All right. I mean, I'm not saying that you're not right. I'm just saying that.
Oh, yeah, no, looking at alternatives for sure. Yeah. Because we would if there were a considerably cheaper alternative, I'm like, is there a way to do this with like Chromecast audios? And I guess you could, right? If you don't want to bother connecting your existing AV receiver, if you just want wireless audio to multiple zones, you could still have a Chromecast audio that connects to your receiver if you want to play it in all 4 zones. So the Denon is no longer your source. It's now just the 4th zone. You get 4 Chromecast audios and use the Google app to do all of this wirelessly. That could be the cheaper solution, although you still need either self-powered speakers or additional amplifiers, right? So even if you go with $100 stereo amplifiers, you still need 3 of those. So you're like 300 and so. It would be cheaper though. So that would be the other alternative. Bunch of Chromecast audios and some external amps. Yeah.
Here, I'm just looking at something real quick. So I'm looking at a Marantz. It's going to cost $700.
Yeah, exactly.
How many channels does it have? How many? It's got 9 channels.
That's 9 amplifiers built in, so you could do 5.1 and power 2 external stereo zones itself, and then a pre-outs for zone 3 if it has them.
Right.
That's the same price, and you can't expand any further.
I don't. If he doesn't want to expand any further, then he gets a better receiver on top of it too. Anyways, all right. Kyler. Kyler stumbled upon this on YouTube and says he's been binge listening ever since. He's been binge listening on YouTube.
Could be. Or maybe he's come over to the audio podcast.
Could be.
We don't know. He found us on YouTube.
There we go.
I don't know how that happened. You have to search for us specifically, practically.
We don't have enough views to have the algorithm think that anybody actually wants to watch us. The the YouTube DeepMind algorithm is we don't even register. We're like ants. So he's got Tyler here has $1,000 budget for a bedroom speaker setup, roughly 12 by 12 is his bedroom. He'd like to end up with 5.1 eventually, but since he's listening to about 60% music and 40% movies and TV, he thought he'd start with a great 2.0 setup and then expand to 2.1, eventually 5.1 over time. Does that seem like a good plan? No.
Oh, really?
I mean,
we give that advice.
I know we do. I know I do. But so, okay, when I think of a bedroom setup and I think of expanding into 5.1, now a bedroom setup is not where you're going to end up, right? This is not going to be the end of your audio journey, right?
For the time being, it might be, though.
For the time being. So let's say for the next couple of years, 2-3 years, this is where you're going to go, right? But the speakers that we're going to recommend for a bedroom setup versus the speakers that we're going to recommend for other setups are significantly different. I think they don't have to be, but they generally will be because you're so space constrained and everything's so tight that we end up recommending things that we're like, okay, well, you could use these as overhead speakers,
or surround
speakers.
No, because I was saying, you get a pair of bookshelves now, and those could easily become your surround speakers later, right?
But I think you spend $300-$400 on a fantastic set of headphones.
Oh, I see.
And then bank all the rest of that money until you're in a bigger room where you are ready to really go all in. I know this is a delayed gratification thing that I myself probably would not have followed this advice, but I'm putting this out there as probably the best expenditure of money that you can do, because if you get yourself a really nice set of headphones, I'm talking quality, I'm talking, planar magnetic or something along those lines where you're like, these are headphones that I could die with. And you might spend $500 on them. But then you will be that will be what you will need for the rest of this time. Now, this is assuming that nobody else is ever watching with you.
That's right.
Or doing these things with you. So I have no idea what your actual situation is. But that being said, I have no problems recommending speakers for you and everything else that you can use later on. There's just I just want to put that out there as an option. If it's just you in this bedroom, never having anybody else in here, or when you have somebody else in there, it doesn't matter what it sounds like, because it's just, the TV's
you have another
on
spare pair of headphones that are inexpensive, or heck, you can have some nice headphones that cost $80, like the Sony MDR7506s or something. Right,
something like that. So you've got other options, or you just like, okay, this is just background stuff that we're watching this little TV while we're talking about other things or something like that. Then you just use the TV speakers. But that being said, let's move on to
answering the question as asked. Yeah.
So $1,000 for a 12 by 12. I mean, you can make that work 100%.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I'm in agreement of if you are looking at building a system, rather than saying I've got $1,000 to spend, I'm going to try to stretch that to get 5.1, including a receiver, all right now, or even 2.1 right now, because we're going to recommend you like at least a $400, if not a $500 subwoofer, at which point you're going to have to really skimp on the AV receiver and the pair of speakers and probably end up wanting to upgrade them later. Although maybe the speaker's not so bad because you move them to surrounds in the future or something like that. But, you know, I would have you, if you're looking at this is going to be a system that I complete within about a year, and I want to get the AV receiver that I know is going to perform really well that entire time, then I'm going to point you to the $500 overhead accessories for less Denon X3400H.
Sure.
Because that gives you the highest level of Audyssey. Definitely will expand to 5.1. You can also expand to 5.1.2 or 7.1 in the future if you want to. But you know,
does it go to 9? It doesn't go to 9?
No, that one doesn't go to 9. No,
wow.
Can't go beyond 7, but it's, you know, $500. That's taking half your budget. And then you go, okay, well, I could spend the other half on just a subwoofer, but that doesn't give me very good stereo imaging. So I would have you spend normally what would cost $500 would be a pair of RBH's new R-5E. That's the Elite version in their Impression series. That uses the upgraded MC series drivers. Those are excellent drivers. Normally, that pair of bookshelf speakers, they're $240 each, so $480 for the pair. They're on sale right now, although they're completely out of stock, so I don't know if you can even order them. But right now, during the Black Friday stuff, they're on sale for $168 each, which is that's a significant savings over $240 each. That's a big discount. But I mean, I would point you straight to those because you might still continue to use those as your front, left, right, even in a full-size living room. They can handle that kind of size.
Depending on how far away you're sitting and what.
If you're not more than about 15 feet away. Which most people aren't. They'd be totally fine. So that combo there would be a great start. I mean, even without the sale price, that'd be a great start, in my opinion, for $1,000. And I would totally agree. The very next thing you should get would be a subwoofer. And I'm going to point you to either a $400 or $500 sub.
Right. There's another. So I mean, I can completely get behind. There's tons of other brands you could try out.
Oh, absolutely.
Perion, Ascend, Kef,
SVS
would be good. SVS, they're I don't know what their speakers cost these days. I keep forgetting.
Yeah, well, like the Prime bookshelves are $500 for a pair, so they're right in that.
Yeah, I bet those RBHs sound better though. I'm gonna be honest with you.
That's why I recommended them at the top. Yeah, I mean those MC series drivers, that was a really good, like that was RBH's middle series.
Yeah,
but they're really good.
Yeah,
I mean, when we say really good, we're talking like linear, neutral, tell it like it is.
Yeah.
Because as far as I'm concerned, if you listen to RBH MC series speakers or now the Impression Elite series, and you don't like what you're hearing, it's because you don't like your source. Because they're just telling what the signal is saying to do.
Right. All right, so he says he spent a ton of time researching, but he's no closer to coming to a decision. He decided to go with some top budget products and started with the Denon X1400H receiver and a pair of ELAC B6.2 debut 2 bookshelf speakers. He also brought in a pair of Polk S20 bookshelf speakers with the notion of comparing them to the ELACs and returning whatever pair he likes less. He didn't like anything.
Yeah.
They all sounded fine, but he listens to a wide variety of music, and he likes to listen loud. And once the volume dial was roughly about 50%, the highs started just sounding distorted. It got a bit painful to listen to. His research said it might be more to do with the lack of amplifier power. Nope. But so now, dude.
Well, it could be a bit of a combination of things going on.
If your head's on the back wall and the speakers are on the front wall, and you're 12 feet away from them. Still no. His research said might be a lack of amplifier, so he's wondering if he needs separate amplification on a $1,000 budget.
Not in this bedroom setup. No, you shouldn't need separate amps at all. But there could be a couple of little factors I'll mention. Yeah.
So can we help him decide, or at least what to audition? Well, we just said what you should buy. I mean, I'm not even. I feel so comfortable recommending RBH that I don't even think I don't feel like it's a recommendation.
I mean, by all means, you could feel free to also bring in a Perion and SVS because those are free two-way shipping. So zero risk when you send them back. So if you just want to convince yourself, you're like, I've listened to 3 of them head to head, and the RBHs are the winner, then you feel great, right?
And honestly, even though we are very strongly in favor of the RBHs, in your room, you may put those 3 speakers and decide one of the other ones sounds better than the RBHs, and I would say to you, great, that's fine. But you're going to move them to a different room someday, and the RBHs are very well going to win in that room. So you decide, sir. But I like Rob's suggestion here of getting of splurging a little bit on the receiver, because while receivers aren't like amplifiers where they will never, they never go out of style. Like you have a 50-year, no, not 50, a 30-year-old amplifier, you could still be using it today.
Just an amp, yeah.
Yeah, it's just an amp.
The processing does change, especially all that HDMI stuff. Yeah.
Right, the HDMI stuff will make a difference, but we're on a $1,000 budget right now.
Yeah.
We are not worrying about 4K or 8K or 16K or any of that. Buying this receiver now means that a year from now or 2 years from now, this is still going to be a valid product to have in your setup. You will not need to buy a new receiver because you got a larger room. And
you got the top level of Audyssey already working for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as the, turning it up past 50% and starting to hear some distortion, like the ELAC debut speakers are not the easiest speakers to drive. They're not hard to drive, but they're not very efficient. They are lower efficiency than a lot of other speakers. Now, we still wouldn't expect that to be a problem in a 12x12 room.
No,
even with the X1400. But I will say one thing that might have been coming into play is, since you just had the pair of bookshelf speakers, even if you use the auto setup, ran Audyssey or whatever, it's going to detect that you don't have a subwoofer right now, so it's going to automatically set the front speakers to large. It's going to set them to full range.
Right.
And that's something you could change, because it's attempting to send all the bass all the way down to 20 hertz and even lower to those speakers. The speakers can't play it, A, and B, it's attempting to power all of that bass, which you really don't need to because the speakers can't play it. So you're using up a substantial amount of the amplifier's power trying to play bass that the speakers can't handle. So I'm in favor, even when you're running 2.0 and you don't have a subwoofer, of still manually setting the front left-right speakers to small and giving them a crossover. Maybe you give them a lower crossover than 80 hertz right now because you don't have a sub. So maybe you set it to 60 or 50, maybe even 40 or something. But even doing that...
I would look at the specs of the speakers, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, definitely your bookshelf speakers are not significantly playing below 40 hertz. So if you're like mentally having the block of, but I'm going to miss out sounds, like you're not hearing it anyway, and you're asking your equipment to work a lot harder than it needs to right now. Including the speakers, right? The poor speakers are being fed this 20 hertz signal that they can't play, but they're trying to. So yeah, I would set them to small, give them a crossover. That might help. It might have even allowed the X1400 and the ELACs to play louder without that distortion. But for the future, with this upgraded equipment we're recommending, I'd still do that.
Okay. Chris in Australia. Chris owns a Yamaha RX-A2070 Receiver. It's 2070. That seems new. Is that newish?
That's quite new. What are they up to now? Are they up to the 90 series now?
Are they?
So it might be 2 years ago, but that would be... Let's see, the 20, so that'd be one step below the flagship. That'd be the 9-channel model would be the 2070.
So he'd like to get a pair of good wired headphones. He's considering the Sennheiser HD599 or the HD600. Just one better.
Those are significantly different series.
It goes up to 11.
You got the 5 series and the 6 series.
He would like to know if there would be a significant difference between using the headphone jack on his Yamaha versus using a dedicated headphone amplifier. He already owns a pair of Sennheiser Momentum Wireless 2.0, and he could easily hear a difference between plugging them into his Yamaha versus plugging them into his phone. So could higher-end headphones really benefit from a dedicated headphone amp? He figures it might make a bigger difference for the 300-ohm HD600 than the 50-ohm HD599. So what do we think? Okay, so yes, the only reason, in my opinion, to ever buy a headphone, well, let me back that. Let me walk that one back. The main reason, I left the window open because it's nice and cool outside. I'm trying to keep this room cool, but there's a freaking helicopter. What is going on? What is there, a convict loose back here? So I live in this neighborhood that's like a maze. Everybody gets lost back here, and every once in a while, people rob a store or something like that, like out on the main road, and they'll come back here trying to get away from the cops. And then they get lost. The cops just wait at the exits until they come out because they got nowhere to go. All right, sorry, it's so random, but one of the main reasons for having a headphone amp is because whatever your headphones themselves are hard to drive.
Sure.
And that doesn't mean that you can't use them with other things. It's just that they don't sound right The bass will be attenuated. There'll be other issues that you'll hear, right? That is the main reason to get them. The other reason is because the source that you're using is not good, meaning that the headphone output on your whatever it is,
I see,
usually a phone, is not as noisy or has an issue,
especially from a computer. That's
right.
Often
Computers,
the case.
Often the case. Now, the real question here is, how does the Yamaha's headphone amp sound? Headphone jack sound. Number one, if it's clean by itself, then that's one of those two problems. And the other problem is, can it drive your headphones to where it needs to be? The easiest thing is to not worry about whether or not you're getting the headphone amp and buy the headphones. Once you get the headphones, then you plug it into the Yamaha and say, these sound great. Or, something sounds off, and let me, get a headphone amp that has a nice return policy, and then I will try it out and see if it sounds better.
What bothers me about headphone amplifiers is that I not only care about, so if I have a difficult pair of headphones and I do need an additional amplifier to get them to the output level or the low distortion level that I'm looking for, the other side of it is I want it to have a very low noise floor, and man, does that seem to be hard to find. A headphone amplifier with a good low noise floor, which you would expect. I mean, those drivers are right up against your ear. If they have any noise floor whatsoever, that's like pressing your ear against a tweeter. You're gonna hear that soft little hiss, and I hate that. I want dead silence if I can get it. So that frustrates me, and it makes me leery of recommending most of the headphone amps out there, because I don't think they're good enough, as much as and overpriced as most of them are.
Right, they are.
What I will say is that as far as mass market AV receivers go, Yamaha continues and has historically had the best headphone amplifiers built in. A lot of other brands skimp on that headphone jack output. Onkyo certainly does. That is not a great headphone app, but I mean, who cares? That's not what is primarily being used for. But Yamaha is a great one to have if you want to plug headphones into it. You saying that you plug some Sennheiser Momentum headphones in there, the wireless version no less, which are not super hard to drive. And hearing an appreciable difference between your Yamaha and the phone, that already tells me, like, it's a good headphone amp. On top of that, there is one little thing that might have made that difference, was that Yamaha actually allows you to apply their processing to the headphone output, which most other AV receiver manufacturers also don't let you do. So it's possible you were hearing some Yamaha DSP going on with that headphone jack output, but you have total control over that. You can turn it on, turn it off, change which program you're using.
Do they used to have Dolby headphones and stuff like the headphone thing? Did Yamaha ever support that?
They never did the Dolby headphone. No. Denon had it in a couple of their flagships, but they didn't bother keeping up with that. But the 300 ohm HD600s, those are a challenge. 300 ohm, 600 ohm headphones, those are a challenge for sure. And I'm not exactly sure what he's listening to. He didn't say if this is mostly for movies and TV or if this is mostly for when he's listening to music. If it's movies and TV, get the HD599s. I mean, I'm saying that bar none. Not only will your Yamaha have no problem powering those really, really well, but for movies and TV, they're super comfortable. They sound really clear and really good. If it's movies and TV, get the HD599s and you're done. I'm finished with that. On the music side, I still say get the HD599s because it's so easy to just plug them into your Yamaha and you're done. The HD600s, I mean, there's going to be audiophiles out there who are going to claim that for critical music listening, they sound even better. That's a matter of opinion. I think the HD599s are great, but I would say those 300 ohm HD600s, that's where you'd start looking at an external headphone amp.
I mean, that's just a matter of numbers there.
It is.
I mean, it's simple. It's a simple math equation. At 300 ohms is
for a little op amp to power that. It's a struggle.
It's a struggle. So, I often
easy answer is just get the 599s. Yeah, you're done.
I often question the reasoning behind making having headphones that are that hard to drive. What's the big there are some design considerations that come into play, and that's why they do it. But I think a lot of it is, and I hate to say this, but I think a lot of it is just that there's a lot of feeling of pride or feeling of I know something that you don't know by having headphones that I actually have to buy an extra device because they won't work with your normal device.
They're going to upsell you on an amp. They're going to upsell you on aftermarket cables. Yeah.
Yeah, cables. All right, Weldon. Weldon got a pair of subs. He put them in diagonally opposite corners. Then he followed Rob's 12-step guide to setting up dual subwoofers.
Which I had, quite legitimately forgotten that I ever wrote.
I was wondering if it was you. If this was yours, or if it was
I wrote that.
Rob.
I'm like, hey, that wasn't half bad. I should remind people of that. I tweeted it out after I remembered myself. So thank you, Weldon, for reminding me that I wrote that all that time ago.
There you go. He's using a Denon S930H receiver that includes Audyssey multi-Q, so he followed our instructions for level matching his 2 subs prior to running Audyssey. He used an SPL meter app on his iPhone with it set to C weighting. Then he ran Audyssey. It set the trim levels of his speakers to around -9 and subwoofers to around -10.5. Is that normal? Should he rerun Audyssey? Well, the SPL meter on your app, on your phone is
there's 2 parts, one of which he actually asks about later. So there's 2 things going on.
So he said C weighting, but was it slow or fast? Or because usually there's that second setting that you have to put in there too if he's got that right.
That wouldn't make a huge difference, but any of the SPL meter apps on smartphones that I've seen usually do somewhere in their settings, and sometimes you actually have to go into the OS's settings app and scroll down to where the app is. It's not always built into the app itself, but almost all of them do have a calibration option.
Right.
Because there are different models of iPhones and there are a gazillion different models of Android phones. And so they don't necessarily know exactly which mic you're using. On top of that, the microphone in your phone is not omnidirectional like the microphone built into a handheld SPL meter. So there's several things going on. Now, for this type of thing, I'm still very okay with using an app on your phone, because this is what we're looking for, is relative differences.
Right.
Knowing what is the real true SPL, it doesn't really matter. You're just making sure that they're all equal, and it's fine at doing that. So I'm not going to encourage anybody to go out and spend money on a separate handheld SPL meter. I think the app is fine. What I would say is, I guess we can sort of answer what ended up being his last question right now, because he was asking if he needs to set the volume dial on his receiver to 0 dB before running the test tones, and you do for the test tones. He also asks if he needs to set it to 0 dB for Audyssey, and for that you do not.
No,
Audyssey
but for
the manual test tones, when you just go into the manual speaker setup and say play the test tones 1 speaker at a time, there you do need to have your master volume set to 0 dB before you do that, because it does change the volume of the test tone. It shouldn't. I wish it didn't, but it does. So that could be it. You might have had your master volume dial turned down before you did this, so that could explain it. And the app actually was already accurate. It's just that the master volume wasn't set to 0 dB before running the test tones. Or it could be that it's just not 100% correctly calibrated for your particular model of iPhone, in which case Audyssey is correct. Audyssey is pretty darn good and accurate at getting those trim levels correct. So if that's the case, you can simply go into the calibration of your app and say, make it about 9 decibels louder. There's no problem doing that. And now you use the app with your volume dial set to 0 dB, you play the test tones, you set it to 75 dB, and then when you run Audyssey, and I guess we are saying you're going to run it again, but when you run Audyssey again, now it'll give you -1 or +1 or something very close to the default 0 position.
The only real reason to rerun Audyssey, to do all this, is if you are somehow concerned that your subs aren't being engaged from a sleep mode, which will sometimes happen when they set the trim levels very low. Yeah. If the trim level being low is not, you could be like me and be like, okay, I'm sorry, I don't know how much extra trees or coal or dead flowers I'm killing, but my subs are staying on all the time. I can't deal with not knowing that the subs are going to come on. That just makes me get up in the middle of a movie to feel the bottom of the subs to make sure that they're going. So I just would rather them be on all the time. Sure. If that's you, then don't worry about the negative 10
the
dB.
speakers being set to -9 by Audyssey, that's still going to happen again, because they're not self-powered speakers. So, and not only that, most people end up kind of goosing their subwoofer a little bit, and it gives you plenty of headroom to do that if you want to with it set to -10. So overall, really nothing to be concerned about here.
So rather than using an iPhone app as a good but not too expensive mic or meter to purchase in Canada, do you guys still have Radio Shacks up there?
We do not. Nope.
That was the go-to mic, was the SPL meter.
I know. That Radio Shack SPL meter, you can't get it anymore. It's
$40 bucks, $45 bucks, $50 bucks, or something like that, depending on which version.
Yeah.
I have it right there. It's like right there. I can almost reach it.
Of course, we do have Amazon.ca where you can order the stuff. But yeah, I mean, the prices aren't great. Yeah. I don't have a good place to point you to in Canada where I'm just like, yeah, that's the place to go and these are the models to get. Honestly, what I do and what I point people to is to still just order from Parts Express. They have great Canadian shipping, so I have no qualms about ordering from Parts Express when you're in Canada. They do all the duties and taxes up front, so when it arrives at your door, you're done. There's no extra fees to pay or, pay on arrival or anything like that. There is a nice little Triplett SoniCheck SPL meter. That's sort of the new, not too expensive, does see weighting, fairly accurate, nice little handheld device. $40 American, so not tremendously different from what the old Radio Shack SPL meter used to be. Of course, we always recommend Cross Spectrum Labs if you want a fully calibrated measurement microphone, that's a whole other deal. I mean, now we're talking something significantly different from an SPL meter. But if you just want to get a good microphone that actually does come with its own calibration file already, not as extensive and as accurate and as unique to that one microphone unit as what Cross Spectrum gives you, but overall pretty good for a good price, there is Dayton's UMM-6. That's their USB measurement microphone, about $75 US. So a nice price on that. Does come with a calibration file you can load into Room EQ Wizard or whatever. So yeah, I mean, that's where I'd point you. I would just order from Parts Express, even though that's an American site and you have to pay some shipping in that, but that's fine. But original answer is your app for these purposes is fine. I'm not going to tell you to do this. If you want to get the measurement microphone to do completely different additional stuff in Room EQ Wizard, okay, that's a different thing.
All right, CRP. It's just the name of this person, which is, I guess, a Twitter handle, one's guessing.
It was on the email, but no name has ever been given, so we're continuing.
CRP in Cincinnati. Listens mostly to podcasts, documentaries, and lectures. Very little in the way of movies or TV shows, so dialogue clarity is super important, but the utmost is in sound reproduction quality over the entire frequency range is not important. So they only care about dialogue. They don't care about nothing else.
It's the voices, lectures, podcasts. All right.
The room is an open space. Back wall. Somebody listens to podcasts on their home theater.
Yep.
Okay. That's weird.
That's why you can't say she who shall not be named.
That's right. The room is an open space. Back wall is 18 feet away from what? The front wall? Or from the listening
From the listener. Well, the seats.
One side is floor-to-ceiling glass. The other side is open to the rest of the condo. CRP doesn't have one dedicated listening position anywhere in the whole space as an option. Basically, they're walking around while this is happening.
Yep.
The Denon XP3400H powers a pair of 9-inch Theater Solutions speakers, never heard of them, with an acoustic audio DS38B 12-inch subwoofer, also never heard of it. Everything was purchased with a low budget in mind. In the previous setup, an Acoustics Audio PSC43 center speaker was also used, and even though it was very inexpensive, it made a big improvement for dialogue. So would an even more expensive center make an even bigger improvement? Max budget would be around $125. $125.
I know. I mean, that'd be the Pioneer Andrew Jones, maybe an ELAC debut. But
I think the answer to the question is no. I think overall the answer is not great. Not a huge improvement. I think your dedicated center channel made an improvement because it was it has
a single source for where the dialogue is coming from. Yeah, right now, if you're walking around a room with a stereo setup, you're not going to get locked stereo imaging. That's just it's not going to happen when you're walking outside the outside edges of either speaker in some cases, right? So that would make sense. A center speaker totally makes sense.
So let's just pretend that you had like $1,000.
Okay,
right?
That is significantly
more. Let's just add a zero to yours. So $1,250 to spend. If you spent $1,250, what is going on with these cables? $1,250 extra dollars
Just on a center speaker.
On a center channel. Would your dialogue intelligibility go up significantly?
Just dialogue.
I think the answer is no. Honestly, I think the answer would be like, this is better and this is louder.
Sure.
But is it $1,250 better and louder? Your answer would be no. Your answer would be, I don't know if it's $125 better. You know, honestly, because there's, you know, when we're getting better speakers, what we're looking for is flatter frequency response, which you don't care about, more extension, which you don't care about. You know,
I mean, maybe louder output capability, lower distortion. Those potentially you potentially
care about. But you know, we're talking about minor.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, how often are you playing a pair of people talking at 110 decibels? So.
Yeah. You know, the intro and outro music might crackle less.
Right. Yes.
But, you know, these things, you know, podcasts in particular are all usually so compressed, including ours, is so compressed just to save on file size that I don't know. So if you already have a center speaker that you're happy with, I think that spending $125 on one, you're not going to be any happier.
Right. I mean, there are such things as crappy center speakers. So you could actually spend $125 and make things worse. That is entirely possible.
That is true. That is true.
I mean,
but if you're going for louder, you could always find something that's easier to drive than whatever that is.
Yeah, get a Klipsch or something. Oh.
Yeah, and just get. I mean,
or a BIC. BIC America would be a good choice at this price.
What about HSU's center channel?
I'm pretty sure that's over $125 because I mean when I just initially thought of this and I saw this sort of price point. So the two top options that I came up with both cost about $150. So I went over. He's at $125 max. So I broke that instantly, and that was looking at RBH right now on sale. Because normally it's $215, but right now on sale for $150, their R-515. That is not the Elite version, but that's their regular Impression series center speaker. But even on sale, it's $150. Or Ascend Acoustics, their HTM-200SE as the center version, but that's $158. So those were my like immediate go-tos. Yeah, if we look up HSU's horn center, it's $250. So we're out of this price range with the things we're immediately thinking of.
I honestly, I can't think of any way to make $125 work. I mean, like you said,
yeah, I'm not sure what happened to that acoustic audio center speaker because it sounds like it's not being used anymore. If you still have it, I'd put it back in use because that's costing you nothing. If you don't have it, perhaps you can get another one, or I mean, maybe BIC America, that Acoustech, BIC Acoustech,
right?
Could be.
Okay. Yeah. We were big help there.
No,
Monty.
I mean, we're trying to not waste your money because
that's exactly what it comes down to.
Wouldn't it be even worse if you did spend $125 and, like we say, actually made it worse because there are crappy center speakers out there?
Yeah, and they cost a lot more than $125.
Right.
The brand I'm thinking of costs a lot more. It has tweeters at either end of the center channel.
It didn't used to cost a ton more, but it does now.
Does now. Monty lives in Paradise, California.
Yeah, don't be too happy about that. We know what's been happening over there in California, and we're sorry about that.
Yeah, hey, I have much family that lives there, and my just hearing the other day about how you can't turn on your heater because it'll blow smoke into your house.
Yeah,
going into stores, you know, the air circulation systems there, everything's smoky. My cousin who lives in Berkeley left. She's just like, I'm out, man. She went to go see family, and she hasn't gone back yet. The air quality over there is terrible. But it's still called Paradise, California. And unfortunately, he lost his home and his car in the recent wildfires. Well, that sucks.
That is, I'm very, very sorry, Monty. I mean, that's, oh my God. I can't even fathom it. I don't even want to think about it. Ugh.
Yeah, I mean, don't you live in earthquake territory, don't you?
Well, we're waiting on the big one. We have been for years. It's supposed to come at some point.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I grew up in California, so I know all about wildfires. Not as much as they have these days, but I know all about wildfires. I know all about earthquakes. And I'll tell you, I'll take a hurricane any day. The hurricanes that we have over here, you're like, they're 3 weeks out. Very rarely. Now, Michael that just whipped through the panhandle was kind of an exception, but very rarely do they super duper strengthen like within the last 24 hours. Usually you're like, it's coming, it's going to suck, get out. Or it's coming, it's going to be fine, don't worry about it. But you should probably also get out. So, you know, I feel you, Monty, and all the best for you and your family. He says his family is safe, which is, of course, the most important thing. But once he is settled into a new living situation, he'll be dealing with insurance to replace all of his belongings to help take his mind off of things, which is, while also being productive, he's thinking about home theater gear to replace his old setup. This is me going like this.
Yep.
Rubbing my...
Let's spend some insurance
Let's
money.
spend some insurance money, baby. Let's think about all the things you didn't like about your last theater make them awesome. All right, so he had a 5.2 speaker configuration, all M and K. Well, you're not going to do that again. He was powering those with a Marantz AV7705 preamp connected to an Adcom 7805 5-channel amp. His display was a 55-inch B6 OLED and an Oppo 4K Blu-ray player, which is irreplaceable.
I know. Although I've got an alternative for you that costs about the same. So
clearly, some of that equipment is discontinued now. But assuming the replacements would be like for like, what suggestions do we have? He says not to worry about criticizing any of his previous gear. He'd be happy to wind up with an upgrade. So if we were replacing his setup, what products will we go for? Okay, so M and K. M&K, if these were the old stuff. By the way, the fact that they're discontinued is so super good for you insurance-wise because they will still try to price out what it costs to replace that gear.
I wonder if they would do the current MK sound, which is actually a completely different company, but it bought basically the design rights to the old M&K speakers. I wonder if that's what they would price it at.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, they're two completely separate companies. The old M and K versus the new. You might have
to make an argument about that's not the same speaker. Yes, it has the same number or name or whatever. It's a similar company. It's the same company name, but it's a completely different company now. Yeah. So you may want to make that case to see if you can get like a little bit more dinero out of them. So the first thing I'm going to say is I know that you probably loved your amplifier. And it was probably fantastic. Yeah. But we're going to try to make it so that you don't have to buy another amplifier, or if you do, it's not that much.
I've got a suggestion to get something that should be considered like for like, but actually sneak. All right,
so you're doing like for like, or I mean, he had 5.2. I think by the end of this, we should end up with.
But I mean, his
7.2.4.
Well, that's just it. I mean, the preamp that he had could. I'm pretty sure 7005. I guess that would be 7.1 going back then. But I'm like, if they're doing like for like, the modern version is the 7705, right? The model number is the same series, all that, $2,200 suggested retail price. But that is an 11-channel now preamp. And I'm like, but wait a second. If that's the money and you're replacing a Marantz with a Marantz, why not spend that exact same amount on an SR7013 AV receiver? Because so that's AV receiver. It's got that one's got 9 amplifiers built in, but it can process 11 speakers. But then you used to have a 5-channel separate amp. What if they replace your 5-channel separate amp with, say, a Monoprice Monolith 5-channel separate amp, and now you can power 11 things really superbly?
So I don't know how things work now, but I know that I had a friend who had like a Bang & Olufsen. Yeah. Like, remember that big flat like CD player thingy that was maybe it was a record player even, that it looked like this black console, and it had, everything was capacitive touch, and this was like 20 years ago when it was super cool, right? And he had one of those, and there was a fire or something in this building, and he lost it. Well, at that point, that thing was not replaceable because it was discontinued, or they didn't sell them anymore, or whatever. So basically what they do is they just, for all of this stuff, they're like, okay, so this is the amount of money that it would take to replace these things. Here's that amount of money. Right. You go buy what you want. Right. Which means we don't have to be limited to, okay, he had this, he had this, he had this. We have to buy one of each. Right. That's around the same price point. I think we just take the total sum of money and say, what can we do with this? And I think that's what you should be thinking, Monty, is, okay, so generally speaking, I'm going to have this much. Let's say, just kind of eyeballing what you've got here, let's say you've got $15,000. I think maybe that's conservative. You probably have closer to $20,000 worth of stuff in here. I don't know what his subwoofers
including that OLED, yeah.
Yeah, with the OLED, yeah, and the Oppo and everything else. So when you think about the Oppo being discontinued, now it's a $1,000 thing. Yeah. You know, you got $15,000 to $20,000 worth of stuff. What can we get with that? Well, we can get a lot.
That's true.
You know, and we should be thinking
we
about
shouldn't go spending money before we have it, though. I mean, let's not go nuts, right? Because
no. But
have
I mean,
this insurance money yet. So.
This is not only that though. He doesn't have a place to. We don't even know what the place looks like. Yeah. So what we're doing right now is coming up with options.
Sure.
So I mean, my very first thought, of course, is speakers, because that's me. That's what I think.
Right.
And I mean, I would be if all my stuff got burnt up, I'd be looking at RBH, and I'd be looking at. I would not be looking at their Impression series speakers. I'd be looking in the
Signature series.
Signature series, for sure. If
that's fair, more than fair. Yep.
I would then, of course, like Rob said, I would be looking at a receiver that could process at least 9 channels. You know.
Well, I mean, you're going to be close to the top of the range of Denon and Marantz.
Yeah.
So that's going to be 11 regardless.
I would be looking at a 3 to 5 channel external amplifier, because I would think that I would need at least that to do the overhead speakers.
I'm sticking with going with a Monoprice Monolith though. So
yeah, I could do that. You could also do SVS, the SVS, whatever
amplifiers,
Basax.
No, Emotiva.
Emotiva. What did I say?
You said
SVS. Oh, Emotiva.
Oh, sure.
The Basax stuff. That would be my other option.
Monoprice's Monoliths even more.
I know you do. I know you do. And they are great, but I think they're a little bit pricier than SVS.
No, they're not. They're less expensive.
Oh no. Would SVS get to be not to be
not SVS? Emotiva. You keep saying
that's what I said. So Emotiva.
They're close. They're very close in price. We're talking differences of $100 or $200,
right.
But
so either one of those. But then as far as the display goes, so he said he had a projector as well.
No, didn't mention that. But he had a B6 OLED. So I mean, a B8 OLED is the current replacement.
Right.
That should be very like for like.
Yeah, but I would now be thinking,
get a 65
I'm getting a new house. Well, not only that. I'd be considering a projection setup.
Oh, I see.
As well, like let's do this thing right.
No, but
like,
if this was a 55-inch OLED, it was. I mean, yes, you can still get a nice projector at that same price point, but I mean, we're not going nuts here.
Yes, not yet. I'm not. Wait till he gets his money. I'm good at spending money. So I mean, I would have this in the back of my mind as now that you know. Like, and no one starts off. No way. Very rarely do we start off with I've got this empty room. I'm going to turn it into a theater. And I know everything I want in here. I know everything I want it to be able to do. I know everything. We rarely start off there. We start off with, I have a room. I have a TV. I would like to hear things better.
Yeah.
Then I would like to see things better. Then I would like that sound that I made better. I would like it to also be lower. And then I would like to have more of it. And then, I mean, this is how we kind of Frankenstein up our systems. But now you have the option of going back and going to a brand new place and saying, I know exactly what I want. I want a front projection setup with a acoustically transparent screen and a false wall with all my speakers behind the screen, everything embedded in the walls, overhead speakers. I want this many speakers, this many subs. I want the subs to be from in these locations. I mean, this is a very exciting opportunity for you home theater wise. A very sad turn of events personally. So.
Yeah. Well, I'll just throw in there. So for the Oppo, I would replace that with the Panasonic UB820 because that is as like.
Stay tuned to this channel as it will change as the future goes.
Oh, sure.
Yes, all you YouTube commenters are like, that's so old. Yeah, okay.
I think it's going to be a top choice for a while. But yeah, Panasonic UB820 to replace that. And for speakers, for me, I'm like, if you liked M&K, I'm going to point you to Ascend Acoustics because. Dave Fabricant used to work at M&K, designing the original M&K speakers that were like the standard in so many studios and that. And he went on to make his own company, Ascend Acoustics. So I'm going to point you over there for speakers, and that'll give you lots to look at and ponder about and fantasize about.
Right, and this is a perfect opportunity for Tom's favorite Excel file, which is you got different sheets at the bottom. This is an open room. This is the equipment I'd want in an open room. This is a dedicated theater. This is a dedicated theater that is also in the basement game room situation. This is the gear I would want for this. This is and start pricing all this stuff out, and then You know, this is like high tier, mid tier, low tier. You know, I mean, you could be doing this for a while. This is definitely going to keep your mind off the fact that you don't have a home anymore. So I'm sorry about that.
We've been doing this podcast for, I mean, Tom's been doing it for 11 years now. I've been here for what? I don't know, 7, something like that. So
has it been that long?
It's been something like that.
We should tell you what, dude. This business is going to get off the ground these days.
It's going to take off like a rocket.
They say the first 7 years are the worst, Rob. After that, it's all bank. Okay, so he was running a Windows 7 Media Center PC with HD Home Run Prime cable card tuners to record from Comcast. I don't think any of those things exist anymore, but let's go on.
That's
all of those products are discontinued now.
Yep.
Confirming what I just said. So what are people these days using these days for multiple tuner systems recorded from a cable company if they don't want to pay monthly fees for the cable company's own DVRs? I do not know.
So, I mean, the one answer is that if you're not using the cable company's own DVR, you're probably using a TiVo. But price-wise, I don't think that's really saving you a significant amount of money. You're having to pay a monthly or yearly fee to TiVo instead of to your cable company. But, hey, a lot of people like the TiVo hardware better than what the cable company offers, so that is sort of the alternative that most people are using. So that's the more or less obvious answer. Now, Silicon Dust, the people who make the HD Home Run products, they have announced for a while, I think it's about a year ago now, they announced a Prime 6 cable card tuner and their own DVR service, which does have a yearly fee, but it's quite inexpensive. It's not a high yearly fee, but it's not out yet. They're still like waiting on the certification and that, and it's been a minute since they announced this versus it still isn't available yet. So for people who wanted to, because you can't do Media Center on Windows 10 anymore, it literally doesn't exist. Yeah. So this HD Home Run 6-tuner Prime cable card network tuner, that is going to be the hardware. Silicon Dust's own DVR service, that is going to be the only DVR service that's going to work with copy protected stuff coming from a cable company through a cable card. So that's really the only game in town, except that it literally isn't something you can buy today. And it's what people are waiting for if they want to transition from Windows 7, or I guess some people had Windows 8 Pro, but that was fun. $35 a year is what they're going to charge for the DVR service. So that really isn't too bad. Certainly less than the monthly rental fee from your cable provider. So yeah, it's basically wait or go to TiVo or just bite the bullet and get whatever the cable company gives you, because that's kind of it.
Infinite Gary. Gary decided to connect his Sony Discman to a self-powered Dynaudio speakers. At first, he used the Discman's line-out connection as recommended in the manual, but at one point, he plugged into the headphone jack instead. He said it was as though the sound system had gotten a B12 shot with more detail, more openness, more impact, and a room-filling sound. Clearly, he can vary the output level of the headphone jack, while the line-out jack is set to a fixed output level. But why does it sound this much better using the headphone jack, and is it okay to continue doing so instead of using the line out? I'll answer the last part, and Rob can answer the first part while I go get a cup of water, because I'm starting to get parched over here. And the answer is yes, it's fine. I mean, I don't see any reason why.
For the most part.
I don't see why it would be a problem. So he's got cascading volume controls on this thing now.
Sure, yeah.
If he does the headphone jack.
Yeah. Well, not only so. Okay, so. Let's see. That's an analog output. I'm pretty sure those Dynaudios, it's going to end up being an analog to digital conversion and then a digital back to analog conversion.
Right.
Pretty sure that there's some digital stuff going on inside of the self-powered speakers themselves. But yeah, so you've got definitely the gain stage of the headphone jack, which is variable. So, I mean, that kind of answers why this difference in sound. Well, because you can vary the gain that's coming out there. Could it potentially cause an issue? It's possible, because you could turn the gain of the headphone jack output up so high that you cause clipping. obviously you wouldn't want to do that. You should be able to hear if that's beginning to onset. But yeah, I mean, that's really the reason. You're just sending a stronger signal out of the source device, your Discman in this place. You're sending a stronger signal out of that, which is then being amplified by the amplifiers that are built into your self-powered speakers. So yeah, the stronger signal, that explains what sounds to the ear like more detail, more openness, room filling. Of course, it's just louder. That's really what happened. It's just louder. And unless you busted out a very accurate SPL meter and made sure that the before and after, so you've got the combination of the line-out jack, which is a fixed gain, being amplified by your speakers, versus whatever's coming out of the headphone jack and then being amplified, unless you made sure that the end result was exactly the same volume level, you're going to favor whatever was louder, which is probably a headphone jack. So that explains why. Yeah, as long as it's not clipping, it's fine.
What he said. Man, I had myself like completely tied up in here. I have no idea how I did that. I was completely tangled up. It was very strange. Christian would like to take us down memory lane for a little while. No, I refuse. We might recall he first wrote to us when his setup was a TV connected to some PC speakers. Not ringing the bell. He had a 5.1 Yamaha home theater in a box at one point, you and everybody else, but the PC speakers actually sounded clearer. The best you could say about the home theater in a box subwoofer is that it did make noises. Okay, well, I mean,
it was not silent. Okay. Something came out of it.
That was back in episode 500.
Woo!
Okay, so about 620 episodes ago. I mean, 120 episodes ago.
About 2 years ago at this point, yeah.
And we recommended starting him off with some Andrew Jones Pioneer speakers. He wanted something even a little more impressive, so he wound up with the MP Tech Impression Series towers and the Big Center, which he still loves. Mm-hmm. So that's good.
That's RBH now, RBH Impression Series. I mean, it always was RBH, but at one point they had a separate company for the Impression Series, EMP Tech. We remember them fondly.
Yeah, we remember them fondly as being completely unnecessary. The only reason they had that was because they were afraid they were going to piss their dealers off.
That's right. Direct sales.
If they had direct sales through RBH. And at some point, they came to their senses. That led to a pair of SVS PB1000s, a Denon XT3400W, some measurement gear, and Room EQ Wizard, which helped him get his bass dialed in. Now he's just capping things off with a 65-inch C8 OLED, which means somebody got himself a job. All right. He can't believe what a difference it is when he thinks back to where he started, and he's come to think of the two of us as friends. Well, that's good. I'm sorry I don't remember who you are.
Oh, even though we've talked to Christian multiple times on the Hangouts.
No, I know. Even though we've never met in person. So he appreciates our dedication and our advice. He'll keep listening and supporting the podcast. So his question is, his OLED is still very new to him, so for the moment, he's still using his PS4 for all his streaming services. Blu-rays and games look fantastic, and he's just using the preset picture modes on the OLED, no setting changes yet. When he switches to watching any of the streaming service on this PS4, the image definitely looks too dark. Blu-rays look fine, and the PS4 does support HDR output, which looks fine on games, but not on the streaming services. So do we know why apps like Hulu and Amazon Prime on this PS4 look too dark? Should he just use the apps that are built into the OLED instead? And what about certain apps that are available on the PS4 but not with the OLED, like Funimation, for example? Funimation, it's got to be anime, right? Funimation? It's
probably. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that service, but
I didn't know they were service. I know their little logos at the beginning of animes like My Hero Academia and stuff like that. So I assume it's their stuff streamed.
Probably.
This sounds to me like there's it's a PS4 setting someplace in the HDR.
Yeah, that could definitely be.
To me, that's what it sounds like, because they have so many different little menus.
Yeah, we did have what was potentially kind of similar last week with the NVIDIA Shield, where I'm forgetting whose name it was, but was saying that all of his other sources were looking fine. His NVIDIA Shield, things were coming out looking too dark. And in that case, it was all the apps, which almost certainly it means it's a setting inside the Shield in that case, and this is probably a setting inside the PS4. So first up, I would say for Netflix, definitely use the Netflix app that's built into your OLED. Because outside of an Apple TV 4K, and I guess technically an Xbox One, although you have to do that whole manually switching it back and forth thing. But outside of those devices, the one that's built into your OLED is the only one that can do Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos. Right? Some of them do one or the other.
Right.
But that's the only way to get both. So for sure for Netflix, use the built-in app in the OLED because you've got a setup that can do Atmos. So there you go. But yeah, as far as the PS4 looking too dark on app services. So first thing to know about the OLEDs is that for every single source, including each individual streaming app built into the OLED, the picture settings are unique. Now, when you make an adjustment to a picture setting, and I would recommend using the ISF dark and ISF bright modes for day or night and day mode respectively, and honestly, just setting those and leaving them at default is pretty darn close to perfect anyway. So not making settings changes is not a big deal. But if you do make any settings changes, they do have a little thing at the bottom of those menus that says apply to all inputs, which mostly works, but it doesn't actually apply all
but he says
the settings.
That the games look fine, and it's at the PS4,
and that's
means,
just it.
Yeah.
So what I'm thinking is going on here is in your PS4, you got to check if it's set to RGB output, because that would explain this, right? In RGB output, the PS4 is saying the signal level of 0 is black. And so now when video comes in, everything in video, 16 in the signal is supposed to be black. So now everything below that just got crushed,
right?
Which makes everything look too dark. So that could be what it is. You're going to have to check your PS4's video output settings and make sure that that's set to YCC. Or if you're leaving it on RGB, that it's set to its limited RGB output mode, not the full RGB output mode. Those would be the settings to look at. He said he didn't make any changes to his OLED at this point, so I don't think you put it into PC mode. If you didn't change anything else, because that's kind of a process to even get it in there. So I don't think that's the issue here. So I'm betting it's the PS4 set to RGB output mode. That's probably what it is.
Carl asks what battery backup we recommend for use with a JVC projector. Well, if it's a JVC projector, you're going to want to make sure that you've got this. It's just all APC.
It's APC. Yeah,
APC
for sure.
all the time. It's a J-type? Is that what it is?
Oh, yeah.
The J1s?
Yeah, J25 is everything you need. Nice form factor, fits with the rest of your equipment. You can protect a bunch of other stuff, too. Right, especially anything with a hard drive that's spinning, or you got a DVR, you want your recordings to be able to continue if there's a brownout, It's wonderful for that kind of stuff. So yeah, J25, absolutely.
All right, well, that's fast. Ted.
Yeah.
Ted is back with more questions about his room's transition frequency. He started reading up on Schroeder frequency, which can be calculated by measuring your room's RT60 time.
That's the reverb time that it takes to get to negative 60 decibels from the original impulse signal. So they play a little ping, and then it measures how long it takes for that ping to stop reverb or get 60 decibels quieter in its reverberation. That's what RT60 is.
So dividing that by the room's volume in cubic meters and multiplying the result by 2,000 gives him a value in hertz. So in his 13.5 by 12 by 9 room, he measured an RT60 time using Room IQ Wizard of 0.35 seconds.
Which is actually low. That's low. That's good.
Plugging those values into the formula, he got a Schroeder's frequency of 184 hertz.
Yes, and if you don't want to do all that manually, you can use the room mode calculator that we've mentioned multiple times before. They will calculate the Schroeder frequency for you. Although you do need to know what your RT60 time is, so you would still need to measure that and enter that value. They have a default value. They use 0.6 seconds. Which they consider to be normal for most rooms that are not treated. So Ted's room is treated. That lowered his RT60 time exactly as we would hope acoustic treatments would do, and gave him that result. But yeah, if you know your RT60 time, you can plug that into the room mode calculator, and it'll do the Schroeder frequency for you.
Yeah. Rob had said that the room's transition frequencies could be figured out just by taking the shortest dimension of a room and finding out which frequency has a wavelength equal to that. So as for his 9-foot tall room, that'd be about 125 hertz or about 140 hertz if you have a standard 8-foot ceiling. So any of those numbers fall within the typical transition frequency range of about 100 to 250 hertz that he's read about. We mentioned taking the frequency whose wavelength equals the shortest dimension of your room and doubling it to get a pretty good number for cutting off your EQ if you only want to EQ your bass. So there's various advices out there. Cut the EQ frequency. Cut the EQ exactly at the Schroeder frequency. Cut it off at 250 hertz, 300 hertz, or 500 hertz, or just do whatever you think sounds good. Where do we land? I land on I don't care about any of this.
That is the one end of the spectrum.
That is the end of the spectrum of this is more than I want to worry about. So he's only wanting to EQ the bass. Is that what I'm hearing?
I mean, he doesn't want to. He's gone into this research of not EQing above the room's transition frequency or the Schroeder frequency of the room, outside of the modal range. There's lots of advice out there, that not necessarily conflicting, but different advice out there about where to stop equalizing and those types of things. And I have a completely not completely, but an alternate answer to all of them that I think makes the most sense. So Tom doesn't care. That's one.
I don't care.
That's definitely the far end of one. You have all of these answers that fall in the middle, and then my answer, which is, since you have the ability to measure, and we know Ted doesn't mind doing measurements. He actually
clearly
has fun with it, and that's cool because I have fun with it too. So that's why it's cool, because I'm okay with it. So by definition, it's cool.
That's right. He just wants to know that there's one more person out there like him, even if it's just him and Ted.
I haven't found anyone else who likes 3D. That's not in fact true. But regardless, my answer is, since you have the ability to measure, what I want to look for is, where does my frequency response cease being uniform from seat to seat? Because in my opinion, there isn't a tremendous benefit to equalizing when you do not have uniform response. Because how do you equalize without making one seat worse while making, at the same time, another seat better? Right? That's what's going to happen if your frequency response is not uniform. So you can measure in all of your seating locations and discover how low or high you can go before your frequency response starts to become non-uniform from seat to seat. If you have uniform frequency response, even, I don't know how high you might go. Maybe you go up to 5,000 hertz and you still have uniform frequency response. You can EQ all of that because whatever changes you make are going to apply to all seats. But it's unlikely, the higher you go in frequency, the more likely it is you'll start to get non-uniformity, because those sounds begin to get more directional the higher you go in frequency, and you start having differences from seat to seat.
But in theory, Audyssey should stop EQing as much when it gets to those points.
It doesn't. It does still attempt to EQ, and it favors that position number one, your primary position. It favors that.
See, and all of that I agree with.
Yeah.
Let's
You're okay with one of your other seats being made a little bit worse to make the primary seat a little bit better, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yes. Audyssey and I are on the same page.
But if that's not you,
I understand that.
Then I think there's logic to my approach, which is, let's find out where you have uniform response, because then whatever equalization you apply to uniform response is uniform. That makes sense to me.
I understand that, and I understand Ted's obsession with this, because he's got a family and they all watch together and stuff like that. But you're a bachelor. you watch stuff by yourself. Shouldn't you want your seat to be the best seat, regardless of these other unused chairs?
I still care about the seat to my left and the seat to my right as an academic exercise.
Academically, you could have two Audyssey settings: one for I have guests, and one for screw all the rest of these seats. Because that's what you should have.
Ribbon tweeters up high. Totally unnecessary. But yes, that's my answer, Ted. So it's none of the above, but kind of similar thinking. But I mean, in my opinion, let's say you mathematically figure out your transition frequency, or you do the thing that I think makes sense, which is, you double what I would say. You find the shortest dimension of your room, what wavelength fits into that, and then you double that, because at that point, if you double that frequency, you're saying, okay, if I'm anywhere in the rear half of my room, there's never a situation where I'm not getting hit by a reflection before the direct sound is completed. If I'm in the front half of the room, then technically I can avoid that. But that's what happens if you just double that frequency. So I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Most of us are sitting towards the back half of the room.
Right.
So I don't want a situation where I'm not EQing the things where I'm only hearing reflected sound in addition to the direct sound. There's no opportunity to hear one entire cycle of the direct sound before it's already reflected off the wall behind me and come back at me, or off the ceiling and come back at me. So mathematically that makes sense to me, but I mean, you could have the situation where you figure out the shoulder frequency and that's still not uniform. You actually need to go a little bit lower than that to have uniformity. So I go by the uniformity.
All right. Mike on Facebook. As a reminder, Mike is the fellow who is constructing his basement home theater with all of his gear in a separate room, necessitating some long cable runs, all of which have to go through a single 10-foot bulkhead at one point, including some Romex. Furthermore, he's keeping his Xbox One in the theater so that his controllers will still work. So that means a longer HDMI cable run from his Xbox to the receiver in the separate room, and then another long HDMI cable from the receiver to the projector in the back of the theater. All right, so and we've got some pictures here, and it is a rectangular room. The speakers are currently set up in the front right and left corner. In the front right, between the TV stand and the front right wall between the TV stand and the right speaker, is a subwoofer. The back has the surrounds are actually on the back wall, sort of over the shoulders of the...
well, surround backs are. There are
there
side
surrounds?
speakers as well, yep.
Oh, I haven't gotten that far down.
He's got
yet.
surrounds and surround backs, which are the Focal Super Birds.
Yes,
I think I like those. I think they look nice.
Yeah, they look pretty nice. So, and then there's a doorway to the right of the three-seater couch, which is sitting, looks like in the back third of the room. Oh, there's a doorway on either side. One kind of too small. There's a doorway on the left.
Oh yeah, the one that is on his what will be his right wall. I'm pretty sure that's like the equipment place where he's going to be sticking his Xbox.
Okay,
pretty sure that's what that is.
There's a door on the other side.
There's a door on the other side.
And this is all unfinished. We're seeing 2x4s and insulation.
We sure are. This is definitely not a completed room yet, but that's great because he's sorting out all his equipment and cabling issues before the drywall goes up, which I am 100% in favor of doing.
So he says, first, some good news. He had previously asked if running his speaker wire and the Romex all in the same bulkhead will cause any problems. We said probably not, and that has been true. He's tested it now with Romex live and powered up, and he isn't getting any interference with the speakers. But HDMI hasn't been so rosy. He ended up needing 60-foot cables, HDMI cables, instead of the 50-foot he thought originally, or we thought originally. I don't know why we would have thought that. But anyways, Monoprice has active HDMI cables that claim 18 gigabits per second, are in-wall rated with a max length of 60 feet. So ordered 2 of those. When he did his initial test with his Xbox One to the receiver and his receiver to his TV, since he doesn't have his projector yet, everything worked with the 2 60-foot active HDMI cables. When you put the TV in the actual theater room and the receiver in the equipment rack, it didn't work anymore. What do we suggest? Sounds like you either need a new cable or you need a new cable. I mean, these are active cables, so you can't even get like a signal booster. I don't think.
Nah, these are active cables, and it does sound like so. You know, you do the test, you have everything in the same room, it's the exact same cable, it all works, but then you actually string it through that bulkhead, through the soffits and all that. It's running next to power lines, and the little bit of interference that
just enough
that it's picking up from other cables in there, it's just enough to disrupt.
Sounds like you need fiber optic, dude.
Unfortunately, it really does. I mean, fiber optic is immune to picking up any of the electromagnetic interference. It's going to cost you more, but that's the thing that's going to work.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand how frustrating it is. You're like, oh, this worked. That's great. And then you install it and it doesn't work anymore. And it's like, why? It's the exact same cable, but I mean, it's digital. All or nothing. It's either perfect or it doesn't work.
Yeah. So he got a mono 3.5 millimeter extension cable, as we suggested, so that he could run Audyssey while the receiver is in the equipment rack far, far away from the theater room. Audyssey fired right up when he plugged in the mic and extension cable with the extension cable attached, and it did function, but it seemed to be picking up a lot of interference or noise or something. At the initial subwoofer level check, Audyssey was registering 94 dB SPL. Even if you turned the subwoofer dial on the subwoofer down so low that you could not hear anything coming from the sub. The mic works fine if he doesn't use the extension cable. So what now? It sounds like that is definitely interference from that Romex, like 100%.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, it could just be just sheer ambient interference.
Yeah,
it's probably an unshielded cable, unfortunately, that you picked up there.
That you picked up. Yeah, the cable itself is not good.
Yeah,
so
that's a lot of noise. Although, I mean, that could just be a 60 hertz hum.
Yeah,
I could easily.
That is, if you ever heard a sub do a 60 hertz hum, you would know how loud it is. Yeah. It is real loud. I don't know. I mean, a better cable would be a solution.
A well-shielded. I mean, how much money do you want to spend on a mono 3.5 millimeter extension cable? But a shielded one would help you here. And also, I mean, this is very temporary, right? So don't run that through the soffit and bulkhead. Like, just string it along the floor, go through your doorway.
Honestly, I'm gonna be dead honest with you. That is exactly. I would buy like a 200-foot, regular cable that you're like, I could run it any room of this house. And I did that with Ethernet. I have got a coil of Ethernet right here.
I mean,
I measured it out so that I literally could take a laptop to the other end of this room and plug it in to the cable I'm plugged in right now. The whole point being that Ethernet generally does not care. It doesn't require that much power and for what we're doing. So I would not put it in the bulkhead at all. I would just
I'm not even sure that he was for sure, but it sounds like maybe he was. I mean, you could actually just get an RCA cable, because you can get a nicely shielded long RCA cable for not very much money from Monoprice.
And RCA to
get an adapter.
5. Yeah.
RCA to 3.5 millimeter, because of course just a single RCA cable is going to be mono. That's fine. Yep. And just a 3.5 millimeter adapter on either end, of course.
That would work.
Has to plug.
That's going to be a lot more expensive than that.
It's going to be a bunch of money, but yeah, that is kind of what you need. Yeah, you're clearly just picking up noise in that long extension cable. Right. Yeah.
So he's installing.
We're just spending all this money on his behalf. No, it's nothing. More expensive cables.
We're not the one that put the thing 60 feet away.
That's true. Fiber optic HDMI. I mean, we're talking like $240 versus $140, so like a $100 upgrade. But that times 2. He needs 2 of them. HDMI.
He's installing in-ceiling. It's made our life so much easier, Rob.
One cable.
That's what they told us. One cable solution. Look, you're going to have all these RCA cables or this one HDMI cable that's going to cost 5 times as much as all those RCA
500
cables.
different specs.
That's right. You know how many times we would have had to change our RCA cables if we had knock on the HDMI? 0 times.
How many times did you have to upgrade your AV receiver when it was component video?
Yeah. He's installing in-ceiling Atmos speakers, but his top fronts are going to be quite far in front, about 11 feet. That actually puts them just slightly below the lowest 30-degree elevation angle that Dolby specifies for front heights. So even though we always say that just have in-ceiling speakers firing straight down, in this particular case, would it make sense for them to be angled? I mean, you could, or you just call them top fronts, or front heights, or whatever. Yeah, just call them front heights.
But what he's asking, even though they're going to be where front heights would be positioned, they're still going to be in the ceiling, not in the front wall.
That doesn't matter.
So no, but I mean, firing straight down from that far away. I mean, you are way off axis at that.
Yeah,
point. Like way off axis. In my opinion, it does make sense to get angled in ceiling speakers for this scenario.
Yeah,
that makes sense to me. Because normally front heights are either on your front wall close to the ceiling, so they're essentially firing forward and maybe angled down a bit, or they're not this far in front of you.
Right.
Angled in ceilings make total sense to me on this one. I'd be A-okay with that.
I'll be okay with that.
Yeah.
Well, let's do one more before I go
good.
get lunch. I'm starving. Juan. Juan is the fellow who is adding an open concept addition onto his house and was asking which in-wall subwoofer and in-wall and in-ceiling speakers for about $3,500 he should install, since near invisibility is a requirement. Did we answer this question?
I did with Lee last week.
Oh, okay, because $3,500 I think is what that in-wall Sunfire subwoofer costs.
Oh, there was that, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what it costs right around there. Rob suggested RBH, and after doing some research, Juan agrees and is nearly ready to purchase. And even though a lot of Rob's recommendations had to do with the in-wall sub, Juan has now decided to go with an SVS subwoofer instead.
Yeah.
What wall are you putting that in, Juan? It's in the crawl space. The in-wall sub was just too much money for lesser performance. That is absolutely 100%
completely agree. Not only that, you can plan as much as you want, but once that in-wall sub is installed, it is stuck where it is stuck. And if you aren't getting good frequency response, you are stuck.
Yeah, you are screwed. But before he buys, he knows that RBH offers some Signature series on-wall speakers now. They look nice, but are more expensive than the Visage MC series in-wall speakers he was recommending.
I did that too last week. I'm like, is that Visage or Visage? Because it could be.
I'm going with Visage.
I went Visage. You got to.
Do we think the Signature speakers would be worth the higher price? MC speakers versus the Signature speakers.
And don't forget, in this room, wide open, not an ideal acoustic space.
Yeah. I'll put it this way. Not many. There are speaker manufacturers out there that will offer different lines of speakers that are, priced much differently, but performance-wise, there aren't that much difference. RBH is not one of those companies, in my opinion. When you buy the higher brand, the higher line, you are getting an upgrade on everything, pretty much. So,
but I mean, a lot of the cost in that is the cabinet.
Yeah.
Like, even though these are on walls and there's not as much material as a floor standing speaker, they put a really nice finish on it and all that. In-wall speaker, you're not worried about any of the finish except for like the outer frame. So a lot of the price actually is the cabinet being an on-wall.
If you were really looking for, I mean, clearly the whole everything's got to be invisible went out the window when you decided to buy the big black SVS box. But I think that the Visage would probably be just fine in here.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I always look at what is the limiting factor here. And like we mentioned the MC series speakers before, they're great.
Yeah.
Are the Signatures even better? Sure, but are you going to hear it when your room is the limiting factor? And I really don't think so. So this isn't a situation. If you've got you've completely dedicated a room to critical listening, you've treated it and everything, got ideal dimensions, it's sealed and all that. And I'm like, yeah, Signature speakers could be worth it over the MC series. Here, wide open concept. It's a family room, not a critical listening area. I'm like, no, it's not worth it. I mean, if you super duper prefer the looks of the on walls versus the in walls that are basically invisible. Okay.
I love how people come to us with these like the requirements, then we like bend over backwards to get them, and they're like, "Oh yeah, well I decided to go ahead and get the."
Well, on that very tip, I was like, because he was thinking he's going to get a single sealed SVS sub, which I mean, logistics wise, all makes sense.
Sure.
But I'm like, if you were okay with on wall, well, how about some Focal Superbirds? Because you can get those from Accessories for Less. I think they look nice. We showed the image in the last question.
Right.
If you're okay with the on-wall look, I mean, the Superbirds, they're not that huge, but they play stupidly loud for what they're capable of it. So
and I'll be honest with you, the Superbirds in general, specifically, but the Bird series in general have a very contemporary look.
Yep.
They don't look like speakers.
Yeah.
I mean, they do, but they look like cool speakers.
Yeah.
Because they have the rounded oval plastic glossy cabinet. They have kind of cool bases and wall mounts and that sort of thing.
And there's absolutely no problem turning one of them horizontal to use it as your center, mounted below your display. So yeah, I mean, I'm
if you're going for a contemporary look, which a lot of open concept things are these days, I think that the Focal Bird line, whichever size you decide to go with, works pretty well with that. They're far away from the big black box that everything else is.
So one of the reasons is because, well, right now, Accessories for Less, which is the place I would point you to get these because that's about the only place you can get them, normally they're $300 each, which would right away still save you money, but they're doing a buy one, get one free sale right now.
Jesus.
Which actually, I guess you'd end up with a spare because these would only be your front three. But I mean, for $600 out of your $3,500 budget, and then all he's going to have is coming up a pair of in-ceiling speakers as his surrounds. I'm like, well, now you can get yourself a pair of sealed SVS subwoofers easily within your budget, and
either side of your couch,
take better care of this large, because this was like a 28 by 35 foot open thing. It's going to be a problem for a sealed sub. The sealed sub is because of size, which totally makes sense to me. That's fine, and compared to what you were going to get from any in-wall sub anyway, still an upgrade.
Right.
So yeah, I'm just thinking you can save a lot of money if you were okay with on-wall here.
Since his two surround speakers need to be in ceiling, and that's suboptimal placement anyways, could he go with less expensive in-ceiling speakers rather than the matching Visage MC series in-ceiling speakers?
Yeah.
Well, on like, I know Rob's going to suggest that you put more speakers on your ceiling if you're going to go with the focals.
I wasn't going to do that. I was like, this is what he's got. It's for a family room. I'm like, 5.1 totally makes sense. Cool.
Oh no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you're gonna, if you're gonna get the side one, if you're gonna, everything's gonna be on wall, then you can put them on ceiling as well. I mean, I don't ever, I mean, especially in this sort of situation, in ceiling speakers for surrounds is okay. It's not
when
great.
They're the only other speakers besides your front three. Yeah, it is suboptimal. That is suboptimal, the right word, but it's okay. Yeah, absolutely.
But RBH is what you generally need to do is just find a speaker that's not, has some sort of weird frequency response. RBH is will play nice with anything. So do I think you can save money? Yes. Absolutely.
For surrounds, in ceiling surrounds?
100%.
Sure.
100%.
I mean, you could even do it within RBH's own line because the Visage MC series is the step up from the Visage A series.
Yeah, I would definitely at the very least do that. So go down that line because they're, especially RBH, they're all going to play nice with each other. So I could save money that way. You could go, I mean, we often recommend the Outdoor Speakers Depot, but I mean, you could go down as low as that.
Yep,
I have a feeling in based on the budget that you're looking at here, you're probably not going to want to do that. You're probably going to make sure that you've got good quality up there for in case you decide to change later on. So I think staying with an RBH, but getting their least expensive in-ceiling option is probably a good idea.
Yeah, and if you decide to go with the Focal Superbirds up front, they have a basically exact matching in-ceiling speaker because it uses the exact same drivers. So yeah, you again from Accessories for Less you can get that. They go for $250 each. So but it's the exact same drivers as what's in the Focal Superbirds. So that makes sense, which are normally $300 each. So I mean, what are we talking about here? $1,100 if you went with the Focal situation. Out of your $3,500 budget, that leaves you a nice chunk of change for some subs. So that's certainly
see how much easier it is to spend money when you to save money when you don't put all these restrictions on.
But I mean, sticking with our RBH, the Visage MC series up front with the Visage A series in your ceilings, it's not going to be as inexpensive as the Focal Superbird setup, but it's still not going to be way over, and you're still going to have plenty of money for one SVS sealed sub. So yeah, either way, I think you're in good stead there with those two options.
All right, that's going to be it. So who else we got, Rob?
We have Miguel C. and Brian R. still left on the list, and we'll answer you gentlemen next week.
All right. I want to thank our listeners of the week. It's going to be Terry and Jeff. They went to www.avrent.com and clicked on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link and left us a PayPal donation. We also want to thank our 77 patrons over at patreon.com.
Yeah, so that's patreon.com/AVRAN podcast if you'd like to sign up for an automatic monthly donation to us. Thanks to our 77 patrons, and thanks so much to Terry and Jeff for going over to avrant.com and supporting us via PayPal. We appreciate it.
And if you want your question answered on this podcast, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. Well, happy Thanksgiving, everybody, and to those of you out in California currently suffering all the smoke inhalation and all that stuff, our thoughts go out to you. And those of you that have made some great purchases during Black Friday and Cyber Monday, congratulations. And it's quickly seeming like Cyber Monday and Black Friday is we're getting away from these things.
Oh, it started like at least a week before actual Black Friday, sometimes even more than a week before.
Lenovo just announced on the radio, like, we're making it Cyber Tuesday as well.
Sure.
I'm like, no, you're
Why
not.
not?
Shut up. Why not?
Let's keep making money.
Let's make all the money.
Makes sense. And if you want a nice distraction, watch some She-Ra. I enjoyed that show. And you know what? If you want to skip past the early parts, just do like the pilot because you got to get introduced. Episode 6. Important character there, and then like episode 8 onwards it's like a different show. It's like they turned a switch and they're like, nope, not doing like a person of the week anymore. Now we're going whole hog. It's the Steven Universe people that made it. So
got to episode 6 of Daredevil, which is when they really introduced Bullseye.
Yeah,
that. I mean, this I've been watching it on and off, but man, that was a good episode. Tell you what, hey. Episode 3 of the Star Wars prequels to learn a lot about how to show a character transforming from, you know, tortured good guy to jubilant bad guy. You know, a very, very well done episode. Watched that last night. All right, for AV Rant, I'm Tom Mantry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AV Rant.
Now go out and listen to something.